But it's obviously very sad to leave the guys. Built up really strong relationships with everyone on the team.
The ping on the ult needs to change, and I think he needs to find, they need to give him a better way to be able to use that ult.
It was so strong. It was so good.
Yeah, you can give the camera a gun.
Give it back.
And it has unlimited ammo.
Who else from North America, with the caliber of Sentinels, do you want to pick as your sixth?
I know Munchkin's gonna IGL because he's done it before, right? He used to do it on Crazy Raccoon.
Yeah.
And then you could guess with Side player, he's just too good of a duelist not to stick him in that role.
Are you telling me that coaches are the end-all be-all of a team's success?
I think we're starting with a man who's nearly as old as you are. Sean Garris actually left for Heart of Thieves. And this brings us to the point, listen, I know, but to be honest, right? He was such a key component to the team, making them grow. A man with so much experience, Vansilli, it is actually kind of sad to see him leave.
I mean, look at this picture. This was a picture that was taken when he was like 30 days into the team. He's already grown so old. Look at all the wrinkles on his face, you know? But no, I totally respect that gesture. It's super, super sad to see as well, because Sean Garris, as you mentioned here, Zescht, has been a key component, but also like just a staple as an IGL/coach in a North American scene since his Counter-Strike days. So it's very, very sad to see him go. It seems as though it's almost unfinished business at the same time, because you saw such a nice flash in the pan of 100 Thieves going into Champions, and then now, unfortunately, you lose your head coach, and then are you going to put asterisks on every time they don't make it? It's like, oh, what if they still had Sean?
Right, we're going to get to that in a second, because also I'm sure Tanner has a million things to say. But first of all, let's take a look at what actually what Sean has to say about it.
This entire season since stage 2, it's been nonstop, right? So since we signed in March, we were building the team. The second the team got built, the contracts were signed, and we had, I think, the open qualifiers in like 3 weeks. So it was just nonstop grinding for 3 weeks, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, right, along the way. I really appreciate all the hard work that the boys put in throughout the time I was on the team. But it's obviously very sad to leave the guys. Built up really strong relationships with everyone on the team, and I think we had a lot of success in such a short amount of time. Everyone was super tight knit. The transition is definitely bittersweet, right? Like, I definitely obviously miss like streaming and creating content for my fans throughout this time, and that was one of the hardest things. That, as well as like I really missed casting and just being involved in the scene more. A lot of the things I used to do, you unfortunately like didn't have the time for that when you're on the like an esports team as a coach.
Right, makes a lot of sense, to be very honest with you, Tanner, because we have to talk about one thing, right? You play consistently, stage after stage. You play LCQ. The kind of stress level on your personal life as well is something surely that isn't the easiest for Sean.
Yeah, he joined at a really weird time, because it was like back to back to back, and it was the grind, right? 100 Thieves were in the trenches, having to win LCQ, and then, you know, being shipped all the way out to Istanbul. It's a tough time for somebody who likes to create content, for a family man. But what I will say is that he said, it is at the end of the video, he said, it is very hard to be a part of an esports program as a coach.
Yeah, so...
Hey,
so you're,
he said, he made sure he said, as a coach. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Fair point.
Yeah.
Fair point. You know, listen, right? This is leaving one big gap that is though left with, in my eyes, Vansilli, just in my eyes, one of the best you can get in A, right? Mike's is the one who then took the role. And I think personally for me, talking about that, I think it feels like this is the right kind of replacement. You know, getting Sean out, not the easiest, but if there's one guy you could get in that region, it is Mike's.
Agreed, 100%. I mean, Mike's was already in a team as the assistant coach. Now he's able to be promoted into the head coach, just like I was promoted into VALORANTING host. And then hopefully Mike's HD won't get down. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding, guys. I'm not quitting the show. This is all fun and games. I actually prefer doing this more. But no, I think it's still pretty fun to have Mike's actually. A big congratulations to Mike's too. I think he's been a key component. I think every time we've had an interview about anybody talking about 100 Thieves, MCE, when he talks about the guard, he's like, and they talk about 100 Thieves, like, don't forget about Mike's HD. Sean Garris says, don't forget about Mike's HD. And for a position as a coach and assistant coach where, you know, it's back to back to back, you don't know how many hours goes into making your team, getting your team ready. Because as a player, to a certain point, you just hop into a server and you just play the game. You know, you just try to win the game. But in terms of figuring out that strategy, is a lot between the coaching staff and the IGL on top of that to make all of that work.
The great part is we can actually discuss that a little later. First of all, we have to see a little bit what Mike said exactly about that.
we're very excited about the next person we're signing onto the coaching staff, and it's a familiar face. It's very experienced, so and he's going to fit in very, very well with our system, and he's going to allow us to kind of continue to develop all of this and give Mike the assistance that he needs.
All right. So listen. Right? We have a man promoted to head coach. So this leaves obviously the slot called assistant coach open. Tanner, and let me put it this way. Talking earlier to Ian, and he said, we had a few comments here and there. Who is it going to be? And we're not going to talk yet about what Reddit says who it's going to be. Give me your gut feeling, right? Assistant coach, a very prominent figure. Who do you see there filling that slot?
Yeah, if it somebody very prominent.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the coaches that are kind of now on the market. The first one that comes top of mind,
JDM.
Sure,
JDM.
JDM does come top of mind. I don't know if this was on air or off air, but never. I'm not gonna say anything about JDM. And when we talk about behind closed doors. But the first person that really comes to mind is Raucus, and I think Raucus, like having a chance to chat with him on this show, kind of just proved that he brings a lot to an organization as just a level head, but then also his experience in Valorant as a player, as a coach from Overwatch. What I really hope they do in kind of filling Sean's position, not as, head coach, because Mike's is now doing that, but Sean as a player with so much experience was one person that I really trusted for 100 Thieves to say, guys, we're not making all of these roster changes. We're going to trust the process, and eventually it's going to work out, right? We're going to put the work in, and this team is going to be our team. And I think they maybe lost that with Sean. So I hope whoever they do bring in also brings that same mentality, because I don't want to see short lives in esports.
Yeah, and I think one maybe coach that currently is still signed but is sleeping on for like a partnership program for me in North America would be Imi, outside of like the bait of potentially being Sliggy, right? Because in those conversations too, if you ever follow and watch any of Sliggy's watch parties and they're having a conversation of like, hey, that sixth player that could also be like an assistant coach, that could also be an IGL, for example, Cupert, right, being the latest addition over to Cloud9, could be very similar to have like Imi or Sliggy in that role for 100 Thieves too. And those are also very known and prominent figures in the Valorant scene here in North America. So I'd be happy to see Amy.
Maybe an import. An import would also be
Nah, fuck it. Leaving North America is good
enough
for me.
Hey, listen, right? I mean,
unless it's Sliggy. I guess unless it's Sliggy.
Fair play. Of course, if it's another Anglo-Saxon, it's fine. Either way, right? we got also people saying it could be Hiko, right? And this is actually kind of interesting in my eyes, considering Hiko's experience, his knowledge, and also obviously his capability within the game, Tanner. It seems just on paper, it would be a very valuable option. Also that he's obviously already in 100T.
So I agree that it's a good option given the credentials that Hiko has. Like you said, already a part of 100 Thieves, no problem. I think Hiko's chilling, man. I think he's kind of done with the competing and all that work that you have to put in to do so. I think if we saw Hiko come back to competition, it would be as a player, right? And kind of chasing that drive in that competition, and probably not a coaching slot. I think right now as a 100 Thieves content creator, he's just happy to kind of be where he's at. So it would be cool though, because that would be a person who kind of like Sean, I think would say, hey, let's just trust the process, right? We don't have to break it up unless people are literally like physically fighting inside the team house. Let's keep this 5 for as long as we can and make it work. So I think Hiko would be cool, but I'm sure he's just vibing right now.
Give me Shazam. The best of both worlds for Shazam. Because if he's somebody that's always going to be, loving to stream and stuff like that too, and people are giving him shit in terms of like, oh, you're not putting enough time into practicing and playing with the team. Even Shazam, after the whole hiatus that happened between him and Sentinels, was like, oh, I still want to show that I have what it takes. I've taken for granted, and I'm paraphrasing at this point, but it's just like all this shit, the negative comments that came up to it, and he definitely finally took it to heart, and it kind of like buried him, and he had to he wanted to be above all of those comments, and suddenly it just buried him. I think this is just a great opportunity for him to be outside of back on the surfaces again. He could actually stream again, and also he could actually be a great mind into the coaching staff to help a team like 100 Thieves become a champion. Right?
Listen, I'm with you. I'm totally with you. You don't want any imports? Fine, take your North Americans. Either way, this gets us to a different point because we're talking about staff and we're talking about additions, right? The 6th player is also a discussion that we have to have right here, gentlemen. Because so far, the current 5 look wonderful, right? I think we don't really need to debate that this is looking quite decent, to put it that way. We had to swap with Will, Cyro joins, so on and so on. But at this point in time, right, we're moving over to the 6th position over here on the side of Sentinels. And I'm going to tell you one thing right here, that it is sick is making me not sick. That would be the wrong, horrible wordplay. I think in this case, it is the most reasonable option to go for at this point in time, Tanner, as it feels like who else from North America with the caliber of Sentinels do you want to pick as your 6th?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess like the position of the 6th player is the question that I always think about and what role they're actually filling. I think Sick looked a little bit slower towards the last few times that we saw him play. He had a lot of stuff going on. He was having family issues and some personal stuff happening. So I think rightfully so. I think if Sick is playing like Sick was playing before, that's as strong as a 6th man as you can get, and one of the best roles to do it, right? It's your flex role where Sick can really play anything.
Literally
when
everything.
It comes down, literally everything. So when somebody is sick, when somebody is ill, fuck, this guy's name sucks. When somebody has to sit out on the team, Sick can fill that slot no matter what it is. So I think it works really well.
That means they could call in Sick.
Yeah, they can call in Sick. Yes, that's enough, guys. God damn it!
Try not to say sick challenge. Impossible. Literally. Absolutely impossible. Actually, it still feels like a good point because when we talk about North American organizations, right, we can move over to Cloud9 doing the same thing, right? And they pick up someone totally different in that sense when we take a look at it, because the man that they pick is not a North American. Talking about the imports, I know you love that one, Vansilli. They obviously pick up Cupid, and just to give you a bit of an idea, right? I personally talked to him and I was like, okay, how is it actually? What are you going to do, right? Because are you always sitting in pracs? Are you sitting in spec slot? What are you going to do? So his words were, I will always be there to assist the team in a sense that I will bring in Fury. I was an IGL myself, right? He was an IGL himself.
Correct.
So I can exactly do that. And also considering that, it seems like Cloud9, and I think that's a very logical approach, think the plug-and-play solution of being like, you know what? I'm going to be the one who, in case, stands in, and I know every single thing I need to do on whatever role because I'm in the prac. And it seems like the safest option because nowadays, for me, you don't want to miss on an event and on the opportunity just because one player is just randomly, ill or something.
Yeah. That's why I still think that going back to that comparison of Cupid with Cloud9 or to Sick with Sentinels as that 6th player, it's still a good move outside of like Cupid has the upper hand because of the IGL portion. But Sick, in terms of the flexibility that he has in his agent pool, is going to be really, really good for any type of player within that roster that cannot play for that time. So, echoing the sentiments basically of Tanner. And if you do remember the first strike, the finals when they played, I mean, there was still like 5 maps that were played. He played 5 different agents, right? That we always go back to that storyline. So Sick definitely has what it takes, and I'm glad we're already going into this clip right now because we never get to see the picture of my face when I casted the last time that Sick played for Sentinels against EG.
We got this.
Here.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
We got this. Hey. Listen,
My Joker arc.
What is the wheat field there on their head? Like,
you know what?
Go ahead.
In the moment, it looks actually like while I was wearing it for like 2 months, it looks actually really fucking awesome. But then I look back at it, I think if my face was thinner, it'll look fucking awesome. I'm working on that. So once my face is thin, I'm bringing that hair back, and then and I'm back on top, baby.
Who's gonna be the guy, Tanner? Who's gonna tell him?
Yeah.
Chat, tell me that it's a fucking great color.
Who's gonna tell him?
Chat, tell me that it's a great color.
It looked good on you. Hey, you know what? You can have it. You can have it, man. It looked good on you.
Right. I think it feels a bit like a history book that you're like, oh, people like back then looked that way. It's like, what is that?
Make sure to subscribe to Valoranting because they ask some pretty good questions, so you don't want to miss out on the answers.
It is good that we talked about 6 players. It is good that we talked about an Abe. It is good that we talked about one import. But talking about importing knowledge and importing wisdom, I think there is something where we, as you know, the three of us, might not be too great at. And you know, the Asia Pacific region is widespread. It needs a lot of input. It needs experts to talk about. And in my eyes, a lot of things happened in Asia Pacific. So I think we need to get on a man who actually knows significantly better than we do what this is all about in APAC. And as far as I'm concerned, the man's called Paperthin, and he is the wonderful face that is going to guide us through this. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing great. I mean, Vance, I'm just saying, you don't even have to worry about the hair if you just join me, man.
That's true. That's true. But then where's the color? You're just going to spray paint your head?
You go for the beard. That's what the beard's for.
Yeah, see, I don't have. Yeah, that's where I suffer.
Other hair on your body.
Don't give him those ideas. Hey, time out. It's not that time of the day yet. Listen, we didn't go there.
Spaghetti.
I'm jet lagged. Leave me alone.
Not the spaghetti.
Okay. Enough of that. Listen, you got to help us out here, right?
Sure.
PaperX have done a few little changes here and there. Not too big ones, don't get me wrong. But, there has been a player joined that we need a little bit of your insights from, which is obviously Cigarettes, right? A man who's pretty much played every single first-person shooter that I could think of and now joined the team there as well. What can you give us about Cigarettes that seems to be the right addition for PaperX?
Well, I think this is, for lack of a better description, a clout pickup. So I've been kind of pinging some people. This happened like all while I was traveling in America and stuff, so I was a little bit out of the loop. But I was able to kind of shake some trees, get some apples to fall out. And he's a former CS:GO pro from a long time ago. And like you said, Zescht, he plays a lot of different games. He did play some competitive Valorant in the Thai VCT qualifiers with an amateur team as a duelist specialist. Nothing to write home about. He wasn't very good. Well, their team wasn't very good. Maybe that's the real truth. But he's a very popular streamer in Thailand. So for PaperX, I think this sort of gives them another piece to their sort of bigger picture puzzle, right? Like he's super popular on stream. He's from Thailand. So it kind of gives them a much broader scope for their fan base more than anything, is what it really looks like. And he can fill in with various roles if absolutely necessary. Again, he was primarily a duelist specialist. So, maybe if Jing or Forsaken are, having an off day or something, he can be there to fill in. But I assume he's mostly here, frankly, just as a clout pickup because I don't know what else to call it.
So is that like Shroud? Is it like Shroud?
But he's, I guess it's kind of like that. Yeah, I guess
he's
that's
better
right.
than Shroud.
Okay.
No, he's not better than Shroud, I don't think. But I mean, he might be. I don't know. But
Shroud actually played very well during LCQ. But...
Yes, he did. He played very, very well. And I mean, this guy's a very good player, and you can see that he's got a lot. He brings a lot to the table, and in terms of just the fact that they always play double duelist, right? So it kind of makes sense to have somebody who can fill in if Jing or Forsaken goes down.
Yeah.
I'm sure he can play Chamber if he's a duelist. That's basically everyone could pick that up. So he's a character. He's funny as heck.
I was gonna say,
tons
imagine
of Thai
walkouts.
fans.
Walkouts with him and fucking the whole team are going out would be fucking hilarious with Benkai too.
So, but yeah, like, what does that look like though? Like a clout pickup. Okay, so in a perfect world, as the sixth man on every weekend that they're playing in, and he's not like playing, maybe he can co-stream, or does he have to be at the venue and just not play, right? Because how much are fans gonna put up with, like, yes, we love this guy, but we really only get to actually meet him, and he's really only part of the team if somebody is not feeling well, or we fly out to the major events where he's also going to be there, right? So it's like, how much do you think they can really get from clout like that, I guess, is my kind of thought behind it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a brand building thing. I think PaperX is really trying to spread their reach throughout all of Southeast Asia, right? I mean, they've got players from Singapore, Indonesia, all over the Southeast Asia area. So they add Thailand to this, and that's kind of like a final piece of a puzzle for this really regional team. He's supposedly got a great personality, seems like a fun guy, can keep spirits high. He's got a ton of experience. He's a veteran in terms of esports. So I think at the very least he can be a reliable sub, and also, a guy who in the background can, keep things kind of together, maybe offer some good opinions here and there, with some pseudo coaching, I suppose, but we'll see how it all shakes out. I mean, it's hard to imagine him getting any reliable playing time though.
Right, and this brings us to a different point, stepping away from Paper X, right? There's been a quite decent announcement today when we talk about new orgs entering, or not necessarily new orgs entering, but bigger orgs coming in, and that is Talon, right? They have made this announcement of bringing in a little bit of a Xerxia core here and there, then having X10 players coming back together. Can you give me your thoughts on that roster? Because most importantly, right, Paperthin is back as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty insane. Dohun, Dohun, I think he's the COO of Talon, just posted a picture with Paperthin, and I mean, this is, it'll be a reliable team, but the kind of the scuttlebutt I'm getting behind the scenes is that nobody really feels like they're going to be able to compete with DRX out the gate. In APAC, like other than maybe PaperX, but even PaperX, if you look back at their matches, they can't beat DRX or never have. They actually stopped screaming DRX because they kept getting beat by them. So so there's this kind of theory that I think for a lot of these orgs, this is a time to build your brand. This is a time to build your infrastructure, build your coaching staff, find the processes that work behind the scenes, because frankly, you're going to have a tough time beating DRX. Let's just be honest. I mean, you saw what they did at Champs this year, and they're just going to be just as good, if not better, coming into next year, most likely. So it's a fun team. I'm a big fan of some of the old Xerxia guys. There's a lot of personality there, of course, with Paperthin. For me, this is sort of we're a holding pattern for Talon, so to speak, especially since they're new to the Valorant scene. I think they really want to kind of get their feet underneath them first before they start making big swings.
Isn't there an issue with the whole thing with me with Paperthin though is the whole wrist thing, right? Because like the doctor saying that his playing career is only going to be like 1 or 2 years or whatnot, and then he decided to leave Valorant to go chase the bag over in Overwatch League, but now the opportunity is back to chase the bag in Valorant. Probably looks like he loves the game Valorant a lot more than Overwatch if he's going back to the game. But if we're still going to follow the actual facts that his playing career might not be that long, how sustainable is this going to be as Paperthin with a potential wrist injury? Is that going to elevate Talon Esports to be able to do that well in the East Asia partnership program?
Yeah, I mean, I have my doubts. I mean, if I'm kind of with you on this, Vansilli, where I'm pretty skeptical of the whole thing. I mean, for the wrist injury thing, I'm kind of curious. Like, there's some new procedures coming out. I know here in Korea, for example, like you can get like stem cell procedures done and things like that on your wrist that seem to increase the lifespan. So I mean, they're going to be here in Seoul, so maybe there's an opportunity to test that out. It's pricey.
Paperthin is cyborg.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just put some titanium in those wrists and he's good to go. But I think I'm kind of curious about that, because I know that a lot of players here in Korea have had pretty significant wrist and elbow injuries that they've been able to come back from, not just stem cell treatment, but others. That Korean medicine is pretty top notch. So maybe there's a world where they could fix that. But I mean, in the short term, again, I'm not super thinking that Talon is going to compete this year. I think they're building for future stuff, which is frankly what a lot of teams are doing.
Honestly, that is probably the best twist I've ever heard on any player's injury becoming suddenly a cyborg. Thank you very much for that one, Honestly, it sounds good. But taking it back to APAC, right? There's one thing that we definitely need to talk about, and that is T1, because you need to enlighten us a little bit, because obviously they have recently signed Saya, as well as I hope I say it not Beomjun. I hope it's not incorrect. If in case I did, thank you very much. Very good to learn.
Omjun.
Awesome. That's why we have experts actually here. No, not us, Vansilli. But either way, listen, it is what it is. But this brings us to a point, right, where we have to take a look at this team, and they obviously had their less successful NA run, and now they're swapping back to the region. How promising do you personally believe this lineup is, Paperthin?
I mean, I think they're pretty solid overall. I mean, I think they're top half of the APAC leagues, or the teams that I've seen so far. Obviously, I'm expecting Saya player to be their duelist. They've already said, maybe tongue in cheek, but Autumn did tweet that, Munchin's going to be their IGL, but the rest of that tweet was kind of very much, there it is right there. The Autumn tweet here, Saya duelist, Zeta is a god, Bon is an import, and, Bumjun is, I think going to be.
God? Who's the god?
The god is Zeta. So Zeta, the initiator specialist. So I think, I think you can look at this roster and guess pretty well what they're going to be doing. Bon, he likes to play chamber. So you could see him doing that. And then Munchkin and Bomjun kind of one of the two being a controller player. I would guess Bumjun, if I had to just kind of,
Well, he's there as a 6-man, right? So because that goat emoji is just like, who the hell's going to be that 5th, right? So
solve that riddle for us.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
From what I've seen so far, that would be my guess in the lineup. I mean, I don't know exactly. So I mean, I know Munchkin's gonna IGL because he's done it before, right? He used to do it on Crazy Raccoon.
Yeah.
And then you could guess with Saya player. He's just too good of a duelist to not stick him in that role. I think Zeta's probably one of my favorite initiators in the world, just period. You know, and then you bring in Autumn from you know, the old Cloud9 staff as well, a very, very highly respected coach in Korea. You know, former Overwatch coach as well. So I think this is, again, a team that probably can't compete with DRX out the rip, but you're seeing some really solid fundamental pieces being put into place early to eventually build to the point where they're going to be a contender here in the APAC League.
Yeah.
Can I just say, Paperthin, it sounds like you're holding something back from us. Listen, that tweet showed 5 player names. It said Bumjun was going to be their 6th, and there was a little goat emoji. Who is the goat emoji? Do you know who the goat emoji is, Paperthin?
I don't know now. Actually, the players that I thought it might be got snagged. So I'm kind of curious.
Tell me yes or no.
It's gonna be.
Is it somebody from Dam
Blink
1?
Twice.
Yeah. Is it somebody from Dam 1 Kia? Because Dam 1 at some point, I think there was people saying like in on Twitter, like nobody's getting picked up from Dam 1 Gaming. And if you're looking at that, I'm thinking of Lakia, right? Lakia, if there is a goat that was mentioned there that we know about that goat outside of, I guess on the international scene, it'll have to be Lakia at that point, or even Esperanza for me, or Allow. I think one of those 3 would be a great addition to this roster, and they can't really go for a certain import outside because they already have Ban, and I feel that there's still going to be a roster that is going to stick with a full Korean roster because it's T1. So I'm guessing it's somebody in there.
Sure.
Yeah.
It has to be a Korean player with the language barrier, most likely. I mean, Ban speaks Korean, right? You know, even though Zeta and Ban are Duolingo, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Lakia. I could definitely see that. In my heart of hearts, I hope it's Bunny, but I don't think it will be. You know, I miss him so
Bunny.
much, but
yeah,
I'm a Bunny. I am obsessed with him. What can I say? But I think Lakia is probably the most likely player that's left out there because Texture is on GE, right? So he's already gone. I would have said he's actually probably the best overall player that was in the free agent pool. Or well, even though he was still technically on Damwon, you know, the player outside of the main orgs. So yeah, I think Lakia makes sense for them. Obviously he seemed to be struggling a little bit towards the end of last year, and I really wasn't a big fan of him going over to Exist. I thought that was kind of a weird move because I don't think it really improved his play in any respect, other than he got to beat up on some bad Japanese teams for a while, and then kind of once they started hitting the good teams, he was kind of mediocre. Frankly, he was pretty average in a lot of their later stage games in the Japanese league. So yeah, I mean I think Lakia would probably be my top pick right now.
Hell yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
Confirmed by Paperthin.
Confirmed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We got it sealed. We got it signed. Paperthin, thank you very much for your time. Finally, someone who can enlighten us on this beautiful region. Very much appreciated, and I hope to see you soon on the show again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
A pleasure.
Peace, brother.
See you later. Thankfully, someone who knows something, and not the two of you. Going from that, right? Before we dive deeper into actually the conversation we're about to have right now, I directly want to go for this and set the statement with what we're taking a look at. We're talking about Cypher Buffs, and we're not making this thing up. It actually has been said in one of the developer videos, and we can show you right now.
Yeah, so something that players can look forward to is we are buffing Cypher. That'll be coming soon. We are, yep.
And is his head tinier when you take his hat off?
Even tinier.
Yes! That sounds needed.
The worst potential joke you could have made about that. Honestly.
Cypher is harder to shoot when his hat is off, though. That is an actual buff.
Yeah, but this is not an actual thing that's going to buff it. I don't want to talk about Tanner, listen. We have to go about our actual man Cypher right here, right?
Yeah.
And he has become somewhat worthless, sounds harsh, but not really useful anymore on most of those maps at this point.
Yeah, Cypher's in a really shitty spot. He really is. The one thing that I think that always sucks for Cypher is like the ability to capture forward information, right? Like a Killjoy turret does so much more, right? It's a little bit harder to kill, and it's going to get you early information in aggressive spots. Whereas that camera, you see it, you tap it, it's gone. And then obviously his ult is atrocious. I don't know where we're at and maybe talking about some of these changes, but Cypher definitely needed them, is desperate for them. The only time that I think you're really seeing Cypher get any type of value nowadays is when it's just randomly thrown into a map that people don't usually play it, and you can just get some like one-off trips every now and then, right? Like if you play 24 rounds on Breeze, you need to know 48, I guess, with 2 trips, 48 different trip spots to actually get the value out of the Cypher. So yeah, it would be really cool to see some big changes to that agent.
Yeah. I mean, Cypher fell off because Chamber's still just too strong, right? You can't go above just not having a Chamber. You could have somebody that go up, you could have a trademark for information, and that's already good enough. And you have free escapability with a Chamber. And that is like three fucking roles in one character, which is great to have a Chamber in your roster. Right. Cypher, like, what the hell can you buff in there? Because I still think that his trips are pretty good. I still think that his cages are decent with the audio queue, but I actually agree with Anders. I don't even know if Anders is trolling or not, but the fact that you had slows with Cypher cages before, I'm actually down for that shit. Because now that you have gravity wells that actually puts people in place, now that you have seizes that you throw on the ground that puts people in place, if you have a cage and you have the audio queue and you're forcing the player to go in there, then do a fucking Cypher cage molly, do a Cypher cage nade, something like that, just to bring that buff back.
What do you think, Tanner? Do you think that is the right kind of move? Because honestly, there was a time where I felt like Cypher was kind of not overpowered, but insanely strong. What would you like to change on Cypher?
Okay, this is honest to God. Look, this is it, and I'm telling you, this is it.
Oh, no.
Okay, so hold on. The slows would be really cool because right now, people like when you throw a Cypher cage. I remember the first time I ever saw it. I think it was Steel on Bind inside shower. Somebody tossed out a Cypher cage, and he was just running through the cage, just making a bunch of noise because every time you step through it, it makes that stupid sound. And it's like, it's awful. Now, if somebody's trying to do that and they're getting slowed, kind of like a mini stun, you know, the cage is a lot more deadly. People can't just disrespect it. But forward information is the problem. I think some way, somehow, Cypher needs to be able to ult from his camera. I think that if you can cam out and ult a dead body, that's a little bit further than you can reach, and you don't want to put yourself on the line.
Or a global ult.
Or a global ult, just an easier way to be able to get that information for your team. And I think a couple of things can happen because the other day I tagged somebody, and we all know that Cypher cam tag sucks. And I would peek the corner, and every time it would blink yellow, I would shoot, and they weren't there. I eventually died. I'm a shitter, but that also sucks.
Yeah, I don't think that's the agent issue right there.
I think what needs to happen though.
Issue right there. I don't even know how to fuck you're ranked higher than I am in this game, dude.
Let the young man speak. Please, go on, Tanner.
Yeah, guys, it's a goddamn agent issue, and Vansilli is senile. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I think they need to take what is it? They need to take inspiration from Rainbow Six Siege. There's an agent, I think his name is Lion. Okay, so check this out. Lion has an ability. When you ping Lion's ability, players have to stay still. Yeah. If you move, you get revealed. I think they could maybe change his ult to be something like that, to where once Cypher ults, everybody's got to fucking like lock it down and literally not move, and it just puts you in a bad spot. It makes that ult actually scary to deal with.
Right. Okay.
Fuck that noise.
That's a cool idea. You know, for the jokes and gags, we have our classic. What is that? Sarah, please shut the fuck up, Sarah. Shut the fuck up. You can explain
but please don't shut the fuck up when you come on later.
No, he's not gonna. Listen, I love this man deeply. I appreciate him so much. I'm gonna tell you later what he said the first time he met me. For the jokes, right? We're going to take a look at once more what actually the camera could do, because this was the biggest fucking joke in the game, which had to be figured out way fucking later. That this is actual a thing. That this what we see right now was an actual thing. If you recently joined Valorant, you didn't see this. But how often did this happen in the early stage of the game that you were actually being shot by? It hardly happened, but it was stupid as fuck, to be honest.
Sheriff pistol round, long C on Haven. It was
Look
so
at that.
strong. It was so strong. It
Look
was
at
so
that.
good.
Yeah, you
I
can give
love
the
it.
camera a gun.
Give it back.
How
And it
those
has
looks?
unlimited ammo.
let it have the chamber tool de force on top of that too. I think that would be
Yeah,
fucking
give it-
awesome. Yeah, just give me
Chamber
the
headhunter to the camera.
Yeah.
That'd be
Yeah.
good.
You know what? Let's just have Cypher be a camera. Fuck it. It's just an AI in the map,
Yeah,
just going
sure.
through the
Hey,
fucking walls.
great idea. Let it be a sentinel, then have a
actually
shooting
the
camera.
reworker
Yeah.
split. That's the reworker split. You could actually choose chamber and be within the futuristic walls all over the map. There you go. I
Wait,
solved
but
it.
then Yeti would have if Cypher became like a cam and a free cam, Yeti would be the top free
easiest
agent
job in the
on the
world.
market. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeti would be the top free agent. Everybody would want Yeti on their team to play Cypher and just free cam for all the info. So shout out Yeti
gentlemen,
if that happens.
Let us wrap it up here. Give me short 15 seconds what you would actually buff about it, starting with you, Tanner. What would you buff quickly with Cypher?
I think I don't know about the lion thing and like the revealing thing, but I think the ping on the ult needs to change, and I think he needs to they need to give him a better way to be able to use that ult, because on defense it sucks when you get a kill in a long angle and then you just can't use your ult for the next 4 rounds. You can't
5 more
restack
seconds.
it. It sucks.
All right,
more
perfect.
range.
Vansilli, say something smart, please. Please say something smart.
Global ult for sure.
Yeah.
And the second one, bring back the slow cages, but not too buffed, where you could get slowed going in with an audio cue, but you could still run out without being slowed.
All right, gentlemen, we have to see right now. We have to take a look on the clock, and we're gonna quickly set something up. Quickly, Vansilli. You have to get this is a yes or no.
You asked me 15 seconds. I said 5 seconds.
No, it's okay. Listen to me. It's okay. It's a different question.
Okay.
I wasn't there.
Okay.
Calm down.
Okay.
We're getting there.
Let's go.
Sorry that you had to see
30
Betty
seconds now.
Mummified Tanner.
Yeah.
Either way. Can you agree? Because we're swapping topics. We're going to Game Changers. This might be a little odd to start with, but we have to give a man some room to speak. Quickly, do you agree with the sentiment that I'm going to have, that when we take a look at the teams, that it's fine that we have those 125 slots? Sorry, 147 if I remember correctly.
74.
174.
Thank you very much. 174 slots.
Get the numbers right.
Hey, my bad, man. 174 tickets for Game Changers. Do you think that is a fair assessment to do, Vansilli? Yes, no question.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so we both agree on that. I think it is a fair thing to do. You know, you don't know how many people actually attend. You don't know if it's going to be that big of a fan base. You don't know how many people fly to Berlin for that. But I know, because, you know, we're so alike, Vansilli, there's one man who disagrees with us. Tanner.
Yeah.
You talked about it last week. You didn't elaborate your opinion. It's your time. Please tell me.
So check this out. Last week, off air, Ian and I went back and forth for about 20 minutes on Game Changers, 174 seats, and why I think it's bullshit. Now listen.
Go ahead.
I love Riot Games. I'm all for Riot Games. Obviously, Riot Games is my life. And I'll agree with Ian. Last week I didn't feel this way, but they are going above and beyond by hosting a global LAN tournament for Game Changers. It's all been online. Me personally, I think that, how do I say this? What the Game Changers scene means, hosting this LAN with 174, right? So like, because there has not been a safe space for women and marginalized genders in Valorant or in esports, really in any sports, traditional sports even, I think above and beyond is not enough. And I think that we need to go even further. I'm not saying a 50,000 seat studio. Yes, we need to go infinity and beyond. And I'm not saying 50,000. I'm not even saying 5,000. But we already saw the Twitter kind of backlash that we got. We have 2 EMEA teams going, right? And that could sell out 174 seats themselves. And this is the first chance as esports fans that we've really been able to be behind a scene for 2 years. And I know that there's probably 100 people from North America alone that would fly out to support this because of what this cause is. So as grateful as I am for this opportunity for Game Changers as a whole from Riot Games, I think there is a bit more that we could do. And I know some other big content creators feel that same exact way. And it just feels like we can't do our part in supporting this, you know, by going and being there, because if we just sit and watch from home, sure, we're supporting, but that's no different than what we've done for the past 2 years as supporters. So I will be probably sitting and watching from my house versus actually being able to go out there, spend the money to support this scene that I've been behind since the inception and the scene that I freaking love, man. So I do feel Again, I'm very grateful for this opportunity for the players and for the fans, but for 174 of them, it just doesn't feel like enough. And I know tickets are going back on sale or something like that soon, so maybe they found a way, but it sucks that as fans we can't support more.
I definitely agree with you in that sentiment. As a fan of Game Changers, like it'd be nice if there was actually more people to be able to come and spectate. But I think even in trying to figure out how to prepare for the event in 2022 for this one too being the first year, I still think that it's nice that we have it here, Tanner. And on top of that
I
is
agree.
trying to figure out a venue as well. If I'm not mistaken, Zescht, in Germany, in Berlin, it's just very difficult to plan all of that. On top of that, to get all the logistics and the costs around putting the event together on time for in such a shorter timeline too, because we don't really know what was really going to happen in 2022 for like land events until like 3 months into the year.
It makes sense to use your own asset in that sense, right? And second of all, I'll be honest with you. First of all, Guild has no fans, so it would be all G2 fans that would be coming. First of all, starting with that, and second of all, is it actually you didn't know if it would grow? You didn't know if Game Changers would grow. I see your points, and I think this is a really good learning for next year. But it's a bit of what it is situation. And gentlemen, we've all been angry today. We've all had some anger issues. Basically, it's a bit of a therapy, right? We're getting paid for therapy, basically. So the point right here is, right? You talked about how Game Changers is not really fulfilling your needs. I get you, Tanner, right? Vansilli, you haven't been too furious today, but I'm sure we're gonna find a topic for that. I'm not even worried, right? Now it's my turn. Gentlemen, it's my turn. I want to say something good about that first event that we have in the offseason called SuperDome. And you know what? SuperDome tried really hard. First of all, if you didn't watch it, what the hell is SuperDome? We had 6 teams from the MENA region, 2 that actually came from the region of Europe, which was Ascent as well and Fnatic. And you know what? The idea was cool, right? I really appreciate the idea. And in an event in Egypt, great thing. Awesome. I love it. Really, really nice to see. But what actually happens...
What happened?
I tell you. So the thing is, we had some decent Valorant. Fnatic won the debut of Leo, right? Great player, showed what he can do. Was just filling in, taking the role that Enzo mostly took. It was great. Talked a lot about Mini about that. But you know what actually messed with my head? The times at what people had to cast. And Vansilli, you've been around this forever, so you know what it means when you are.
Yeah, that's why it's not an issue, right?
Hours straight. That is why it is an issue, because this is like 2005 things. Their game starting at 11:30 Central European time, and their casters who sit there cast 7 best of ones in a row without a rotation. I know Riot is trying, and I saw ringers there, and I'm sure that Riot wasn't too happy. They even had games that suddenly were not casted in English. Just telling you that right there. This is not normal. So in my eyes, right here, I'm just super confused because it is a great idea for the region. I think it's super important to support MENA, but man, oh man, where are we that we are still back in the spot where you cast 10 hours in a row without real breaks?
I think it's a logistics. Again, I'm going to go back with logistics again, but
please,
when was the last time that we had like almost an event that was at the global scale that had global reach in a region in the meta, right? Because back then, again, let's talk about it. When I was casting back then in like 2005, 2006, and I was doing Counter-Strike Source for CGS in Dubai, I literally went through the same thing. It was going like casting at a mall. We're doing very, very long days. The matches were delayed because of technical issues, not figuring out the network and stuff like that too. And I feel that maybe now, from then when I did it in 2006 till now in 2022, we haven't seen too many of these events going on at the global scale, right? So I think it's just kind of like, hey, we're hopping back on the saddle. Lessons learned. How do we do it better for this time? And hopefully that major issue becomes a minor issue once they do the debriefing of it and prepare for the next one. Hopefully they have a next one as well. But I do also like around it, like supporting the region was the casters' parents coming in to support them too. I looked at a lot of the pictures on the Twitter feed from Riot representatives too that were there that seemed to be pretty happy with what they saw within the scene. I saw so many cosplayers within Valorant as well in those pictures too. So just that in itself, the crowd is there. There is a fan base. There is a player base. And now it's just trying to play catch up with the infrastructure to make sure that we have the best experiences possible. I know as somebody working the event or somebody playing the event as a caster or as a player, it might not be, the best in the greenest pastures. but I think it's still great to be a part of something that's going to be hopefully even bigger later on.
Let's hope for it. Let's hope for it. But you know what, gentlemen? It's we're getting away from the sinister days, right? We're getting away from the sad things in life. Let's talk about something that is actually worth a proper debate, right?
Okay.
And I hope also that we can maybe go into that later with Salah, but let's talk about something that I called coaching and resources. And this is supported by a man that I personally enjoy. His name is Milan. He used to be the assistant coach of Ascend. If every org should hire this man right now, a very wonderful, hardworking Dutch individual who can, at the end of the day, still play NBA because he's 2 meters something. But either way, right?
What's that in feet? You're on a North American
come
show.
on, 6 something, 6'5". How big is Kobe Bryant? How big is Kobe Bryant? You know?
I don't know. I don't follow basketball.
Oh, great. So you want me to know. I don't know. He's a very tall man. Appreciate the lat so much. He was, follow it. Very good that you followed him. Good choice. Either way, he was kind enough, as I had a conversation with him, to take a look at a table. And I'm going to explain the table to the viewers real quick, Tanner, and then you're going to give me your thoughts on that, because it's really important to, get in the nitty-gritty of things. So maybe we can show that up right now so we can directly dive into it so we don't waste any more time on it, because I'll tell you one thing. It is kind of important to take a look. Okay, so what you see, besides the pixelated things, there's also rumors and things like that, is you see there's basically numbers. Oh, very confusing, I know. And a lot of names. What is this? This is the firepower table. So you see on the left-hand side where there's a T, it says there's a 1, which is in yellow, there's a 6, which is in blue, 8, green, and basically this means, perfect.
Hey, look at that.
I love this production.
Daniel owns.
Awesome. So when you take a look there at firepower in Na'Vi, there's Xiao, and he's a yellow 1, which means he's the highest scorer, right? He's the best. He's number 1 in this team considering firepower. Same goes with Safe. Same goes with Durka. You see the idea, right?
So you're ranking the teams based on their roles.
This is firepower ranking. Firepower ranking.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to finish up with the explanation. And then there's a second one, which is role-specific competence. If you take it the second part of the table, this is so complicated for every viewer, I know. The second part of the table, maybe we can take a look. So then we can look both side by side. I'm going to give you that idea as well, because then there is a role-specific kind of knowledge. Thank you very much. Thank you, production. So there's roles. There's obviously a number for everything. Same one once more. And for example, support, Xiao, number 1 player. All right? So I think it doesn't get any easier. So on the right-hand side, you see the total score. The left get the better. And now, Tanner. I'm sorry for talking so long, man. Now, Tanner, I know you guys are North American and everything, but to be frank, right? With this table that Milan provided, I think it is very fair to assume that Na'Vi is by far, the former FPX is by far the strongest at this point.
By 1 point in total, right? Because they're like 1 point under Liquid. It's not by far.
Listen. Let Tanner speak.
Okay. Sorry.
Ask Mr. Tanner.
Vansilli, what did you just say? By 1 point. What do you, Team Liquid and not V? It's by 1 point. It's not that far. No, I think this is to be expected. What I think is interesting with this is so on the right side, it was the totals from both of the 2 pages. And it looked like on the firepower page, you were allowed to have more than 1. You weren't ranking 1 through 8. I think Safe was up there and Durka were both like ranked 1 in firepower. So I think that's a little interesting. Whereas, so right here. So in the other ones, this one we have 2 1s, whereas the other one you'll see a pretty strict 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But yeah, I think just looking at this, the one thing that you don't get from this chart is how well the players mesh, right? Bringing in new players into Team Liquid, although they might just be like technically 1 point behind in role and firepower than Na'Vi. Na'Vi's been together, except for 1 player, right? They're not getting artists. So I think Na'Vi, based off of all of this, and then that unseen factor, does look like the strongest team right now.
The only thing that really has to mention that a lot of this is rumors, right? This is not 100% finalized, that every player has been really announced. But Vansilli, go ahead.
Yeah, but I have questions looking at that, because you're ranking players and teams by firepower role from 1 to 8 based on what you have here in the MEA partnership. But doesn't this become a little bit more subjective rather, how you're ranking these based on how Milan's putting these, or what are the stats? What are you putting together in this? Are these numbers, or is the ranking going to drop off based of based on the roster that is going to be quote unquote officially announced, right? Just as Tanner was mentioning, let's say Navi's plan falls through, and then all of FPX goes into different teams in the partnership program. Well, now the rankings go down because Shao maybe cannot be as good as he could be in that role because Artis is not able to get, or Artis is not there to get the first kills anymore. Therefore, Shao needs to clutch less. Let's put it like that to put it in Lyman's terms, because that's like the biggest storyline that we've seen from FPX.
I see your point. At the same time, I think from every single source that has so far come is that the core stays and Cena joins. There's like multiply reported. So I get what you mean, right? I get what you're saying. Surely it only works in every single one of those pieces is glued together, right? But talking about that, right? And talking about the rating, I think, first of all, thank you very much, Milan, for promoting that and giving this forward. But there's one thing that I wanted to share with you guys, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. I'm going to say it, and then we let DDK talk for a second. Because in my eyes, understandable, in my eyes, the top 4 teams in every region obviously have players deciding matches. But I think a big margin in 2023 is going to come out with the coaches and the staff. And we're going to take a look at that because there's a live example that DDK mentioned in the interview that you can also find on YouTube. We did here in Valoranting. Ian did it. Perfect interview. So let's take a look at that.
Recognize that the amount of work that's necessary for the coaches is pretty crazy. I actually think that you need to run a team and do everything effectively to, like, hit every single area. So you've got running the scrims, running the day-to-day, the player development, the individual time you might want to spend on the players, the research for your playbook or the playbook generation in general. That's incredibly time consuming. Preparing against opponents, doing match specific research. There is a lot of stuff, a lot of different areas. And when you look at what the coaches have to do in the day-to-day, there really isn't the time to do a lot of this stuff. And there's a lot of stuff I didn't mention too.
Okay. So what are we trying to get at here, Zescht? So I'm looking at Milan's table. I'm listening to what Dan's talking about. Are you telling me that coaches are the end-all be-all of a team's success?
I personally believe the following. I think that the top 4 teams, with what he says right here, they constantly need to not innovate, but basically renovate. They also always had to recreate and restructure themselves instead of, creating a wider playbook. So this is why I believe, and, I don't know, for example, you think about it, Tanner, but where I believe is the future determined on better and more efficient staff that will allow you to, instead of constantly reviewing, to actually preview and take a look at the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I feel like not that that's the only thing that you need, but when you're putting a lot of time into that and you're looking at the players that are playing at the highest level, you're not necessarily, I feel like everybody in Valorant has done a pretty good job of sharing, not necessarily their rule book, but teaching the game holistically, even just like watching and young cracked players, like, the micro gameplay is there for basically everybody. And then the macro gameplay is also, I feel like, almost not self-taught, but when you're able to dive deeper into kind of like the analytics, like even like what Weltis is doing or what was doing for Sentinels and kind of what he brings to the table, it's really cool to see that that's being done, because I do think that is kind of the future where the coaches are putting a lot into that and really diving into the numbers. I think it's going to differ though, right? Like Vansilli was talking about that table just in general. I think people are going to have differing ideas or differing results for certain individuals based off of what they feel is valuable to their team.
You need both. I think you need a good coaching staff, but you also need, let's face it, not necessarily, I'm not going to say good players, because everybody that played into the partnership program, or at least in VCs, are good players, but there needs to be a synergy between good coaching staff and also good potential players around what the coaching staff wants to build, right? Because let's take, for example, the guard, MCE, Cupert, 2 great minds in this game, and they put up a great strat book, but when you're looking at how the team perform going into the VCTs, Saya can play the best Raze, so they had to figure out different roles. Then you play the comfort picks, and then you had to go back into that, because whatever you're trying to build to follow or create a new meta wasn't working with the current tools that you had in terms of players. Another example would be looking at Sentinels. Yeah, you just brought in Weltis, brought in the numbers. They have all the stats that's needed, but did they qualify for LSQ? They did not. What's missing? It's a little bit of that synergy in the players, and also the players buying into the coaching staff's vision of how they want to approach the game. And if there's synergy in there, like 100 Thieves has right now, that's where you kind of have a recipe for success for the future years.
Right. You know what, gentlemen? We've talked enough ourselves, right? We've talked and discussed it enough. Before we go into our next segment very soon, first of all, thanks to Twitch for making this all once more possible. You know, we're staying on Twitch. We're going to make it on Twitch. So don't worry. We're going to bring you a few more interesting topics about Valorant over here on Twitch. Because very soon, and this is why you should stay here, maybe get a snack or something to drink, we got Team Vitality coach Salah joining us.